I was just thinking about a subject or a topic that might be of interest. And, I've been toying over the next few weeks of preaching sermons on passages that are my favorite or theological words that elude us. And so, anyway, I settled today, rather than going to the easy text of the wise man or the star, I wanted to talk about grace. Never dated her, but I heard she's a very nice person. Now, grace in terms of the word we use often in church. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. That still is the most favorite and best known hymn in the United States. Did you know that? Still, always. It doesn't matter if people come to church or have a church background. It's still the most beloved and best known one. And when we plan memorial services and people come into my office, and I always ask, well, what songs might you want to sing? The first one they name is always Amazing Grace, even if they follow that up with, well, we don't know any others. Very common and very popular. So we sing it, and we use that word grace. But if I asked you to define what grace is, or to tell me what grace is, could you do it? Could you give me a short answer, or would you find yourself stumbling and rumbling and rambling to try to explain what this grace is we so lovingly sing about? So let me just take a few moments, and maybe as we begin the new year, start out with a clear understanding of grace that might help us to get through the year. So what is it? At least to me, what is grace? What I would submit to you is that the word grace is a summation of every other word we use in the church. That when you say the word grace, you wrap it all together, and you even share the essence of who God is and what our faith is about. One word. Because grace encapsulates love. It encapsulates forgiveness, renewal, hope, promise, joy, justice, integrity, peace. They're all there. It's all a part of that one word. When you receive grace, when you offer grace, it encapsulates them all. It is about the very essence of the Eternal One, who again and again and again gives us opportunities to reboot our lives and refresh our souls. Inviting us to release, not erase, but release the past in order to be empowered for a better future. We kind of get this. We kind of get this in a way in our New Year's celebration. We like to watch the old year get away, and then we come into the new year, and we greet the new year with all these resolutions and these exciting feelings, and this year's going to be a better year. That's kind of what grace is about when you experience it. It is that promise about the future. It's kind of like moving to a new city or town. You move to a new city or town. It's a better illustration 50 years ago than today, I guess. But you move to a new city or town, you get a fresh start. You get the opportunity to make new friends, different friends who don't know your history. Right? They don't know your history. Grace is that way. God is a fresh start God, wherein every day is not simply a new day, but every day is the promise of a new year, a new life, a new future, new dreams, new visions. And when we have those, you see, then we get the most important thing of all, hope. When you believe that, when you believe that today, tomorrow, each minute has the opportunity to birth you into a better future and strengthen you for that future, it empowers you with hope. If you have no hope, where are you? You ever met somebody with no hope? What happens? That's what people do when they imprison others. You know, when somebody takes a hostage, what they do is they take away that hope. They take away their independence. They take away their notion of what life outside of this could be like. Every day with our God is a new day and a promise of a new year, a new life, a new us. And it is that hope that we get then that gives us the strength to carry on, to believe. There's a story told about a man who dies and goes to heaven, and I'm going to try to get this one right. A man who dies and goes to heaven, and he meets St. Peter at the gate, and St. Peter says, well, you know, I'm going to welcome you in, but there's a little test. There's a little test. You have to accumulate 100 points. I'm going to ask you some things, or, you know, let you tell me what you did on earth that would allow you to get into heaven. And when you get 100 points, I'll open the gates and you can come in. Well, the man said, okay, I think I can do that. Let me tell you the good things I have done. I was married to the same woman for 50 years, never cheated on her once. And St. Peter said, wonderful, 2 points. 2 points, he said. Well, he said, I attended church every Sunday. I tithed, I gave, I volunteered everywhere I could. St. Peter said, terrific, you get another point. The man's a little puzzled, perplexed at this time, and he says, well, you know, I was very concerned about the homeless, and I started a shelter and a food kitchen, a soup kitchen in the city, and I did that. I gave a lot of time, and St. Peter said, fantastic, you get another 2 points, that's 5. Well, by this time, the man was a little discouraged. He said, only 2 points for all that time and effort? You know, at this point, St. Peter, I'll never get in except by the grace of God. And St. Peter says, bingo, you're in. 100 points. You see, God is grace. Grace is God. That's where it all begins. But it cannot end. Because grace requires, it doesn't demand, it requires more. And that more is that when we receive grace, we have to share it. That one cannot truly know love. I mean, you can't just take love and say you know love. Love is something you have to give back. It's something you have to share, because when you are loved, when you receive that gift, it changes you. And you have an earnest desire and experience to share with other people. It's like a good joke, or it's like a great sale at a store. You just can't wait to infect others and to share it with other people because it is so good. And grace, God's forgiveness, God's salvation, these things are used and they're misused and abused when we interpret them selfishly, as though they're just given to us, and now I have this possession, and this possession not only makes me righteous, it makes me righteous to the point I can judge others. I know who's in and who's out. It's no wonder the world says we're hypocrites. You see, Jesus is the clearest example of grace. He lived in grace. And how did his grace work? The first must be last, right? The last will be first, and the master must be servant of all. Power is one of the biggest, most popular words in our world's vocabulary these days. It seems to me that a lot of people are using and seeking power, control. And it's interesting, though, that if you read any book on good leadership, whether it's in corporations or it's in churches or not-for-profit institutions, the CEOs who are most admired are the CEOs who don't seek power. They're the ones who stop and talk to the custodian. They're the ones who do all the extra things. They are the servant of all. And I'm not saying just read any book on leadership. They are, in many ways, living out what Jesus said, that a little child shall lead them. You know, I've spoken many times about my Christmas, the Christmas I received a trumpet from my parents. But it bears repeating that the great gift was not the trumpet itself. The gift of the trumpet was the music the trumpet could produce if I put in the time. You know, the time and the energy. If I loved the instrument and the music enough to invest myself in it and share it, then when it is used, those who are privileged, and sometimes they weren't, but they suffered through it anyway, those people who received the music received the gift too. You know, that's the way it is. I think it was Bach who said, those who sing pray twice. Yeah, I think there's some truth. That's how grace works. You see, the true evidence of our receiving grace is not a sense of, well, I am holier than others. The true sense of our receiving grace is that we join in the singing and we invite others to sing with us. None of you could possibly know Viola Shoemaker. Viola Shoemaker was a member of my very first church. And she and I kind of hit it off because her family came from the state of Montana, and at some point in time in her history, her ancestors were a part of a church in Montana that my father served. So, you know, that was kind of a gateway for us to kind of meet each other. And I served that church just under 3 years. So I wasn't there very long in eastern Colorado, Wiggins, Colorado, to be precise. Those of you who are fans of country western songs know the song about a trainload of chickens out of Wiggins. It's a very popular song, I'm sure you know it. Anyway, Gene and I were there, and those people were very loving and very gracious. But Viola and her family, Viola Shoemaker and her family, were one that we had a lot of connections with. And, you know, I went to the farm. I rode on the truck when they harvested. I, at times, helped them feed the cattle. You had that kind of relationship. And when their family had crisis, daughter went through divorce, other kinds of things, you know, we were there. Well, every year since then, now remember, I left there in 1985. Every year, Viola writes me a Christmas letter. Now, this is not a Christmas card with a picture that says Merry Christmas. This is a Christmas letter. You know, and she tells me everything that has gone on in that community, in that church, who I knew that's no longer there, and what's happened, and this and that, and her family, what her family's going through. You can see this is not your normal Christmas note. And she ends it by saying, hope the two of you are doing well. Gene probably taking groups all over the world. But this will probably be my last letter, because my Parkinson's is slowing me down. If you don't get a letter in 2017, it's not because I don't care. It's just because I'm not able to write. And then she clenches it with this. May God bless you both, because it has been my greatest joy to know you. That's grace. Undeserved grace. Because she, over the 31 years that I have known who she is, she did far more for me than I ever did for her. But somehow, what we did for each other mattered. And it made a lasting difference that changed both of us. And therein, maybe in our separate journeys, it has helped to change the world. Amazing, isn't it? Grace makes you wonder why anyone would sing casually about it. or mistakenly try to live without it. It has such power. The power to empower us all. You, your neighbor, and even a wretch like me.